Hello and welcome to the Wellness Rock Show with your host, Stephanie Deal. This is a sacred space where we dive deep into 5 pillars: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial to create optimal wealth in your life. In each episode, I will be your faith-filled friend guiding you on a transformative journey towards a godly and vibrant life. Whether you're seeking peace within spiritual leadership, inspiration for your wellness journey, or practical strategies for a successful lifestyle, Stephanie and the Wellness Rock are here to nurture every facet of your existence. Join us as we embark on a sacred quest to align the body, mind, and spirit in harmony with God's design. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm so happy for you guys to be here with us today, and we have a special guest with us today, and I'm so excited to have her with us. I connected with her just through social media, and that's one of the greatest things about social media is connecting with other like-minded individuals, and she has her own podcast as well, so we hit it off immediately. And so I'm going to introduce her, and then I'm going to have her introduce herself as well. So everybody, welcome Brenda. She is currently a nurse who is passionate about empowering women in high stress level careers to create a life they love outside of work. With over 7 years of nursing experience, she has battled burnout frequently and wants to encourage others to see the way past feeling stuck and miserable where you currently are in your career. Brenda has also navigated what it means to be first in your family or friend group to break strong past generational cycles. She now lives life with the mindset of changing her family lineage and building a legacy for future generations to come. And that's really what we're going to jump into today, is just breaking generational curses, because I feel, not generational curses, but generational cycles, like she said, because I feel like I resonate with that as well. So we're really going to dive into that, and I'm going to have her introduce herself really quick, and then we're going to do our icebreaker.
Hi guys, I'm so excited that you're listening today. As always, I always say this, but I'm so honored that you guys are letting us be the voice in your ears. I have prayed about this conversation a lot because I truly feel that this will help so many women put words into what they're feeling. A lot of my story came together that way, that through other people's story, I was able to articulate better what I was going through, and I was able to connect with their story in a way that brought light to my own story. There's a lot of things that you don't realize happen to you, and then once you hear it through somebody else, it helps you in your own healing journey. So that's what I've really prayed about for this conversation. So I'm so honored that you guys are listening. And like Stephanie said, my name is Brenda. I work in a large hospital in Florida. I am currently a nurse. That has been a whole journey on its own. For any nurses listening, you can relate. I worked pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID. And so nursing has been its own journey, and I'm really passionate about telling other women how they don't need to stay in their careers, how they can really build the life that they want outside of it. And I'm really excited to have this conversation as well with being a lineage changer, and how you can build your own legacy and have the mindset to create a beautiful future for your family, no matter where you are at with your family. Even if you currently have grown children, there is so much to say to this conversation, even for you. So I'm really excited to dive in. Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
Yeah, of course. I just love the way that you're speaking, honestly. I just have to glorify you for a moment. I don't know, there's just something about you. So I'm really excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
So we always like to do an icebreaker question. So if you could be any animal, what would you be?
I thought about this, and I was referring to the story that I'm going to share, and I think I would be a lion, but because of what it says in scripture and how a lot of us, looking at our own reflection, and this is going to connect a lot to my story, but looking at our own reflection, when you connect with other people in such deep ways, you realize that everyone has such a unique story and that they have so much power in them that they don't realize. Right. So I feel like all of us can relate to like looking in the mirror and not realizing the lion that's in us, that God has created us to be so much more than what we are.
Wow.
So that's why I chose that animal.
I absolutely love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that you related it to the Bible too.
Yeah.
So then we're gonna jump into it. I know there's a lot with like what comes with this today, and if you're listening and you've had your own source of like childhood trauma, or you're in the process of breaking generational cycles, I just want to let you know that you're not alone. You have two people here who are in that with you, and yes, it can be hard and it can be frustrating, but first and foremost, I just wanted to let anyone know that's listening that you're not alone. So Brenda, I'll let you share your story within this, and we'll go from there.
Yes. So first I want to just give a disclaimer to everyone, in case you are sensitive to anything along the lines of like spiritual warfare, childhood trauma. If you feel like you're at a place where you can't listen to this, a lot of my story is going to cover that. So just want to let the listeners know that. And also with my story, I am not putting blame to any family members specifically. I'm sharing my story from my point of view in hopes that I will connect with other people and help them in their healing journey. And I really don't want this to look like I am calling out family members in their worst moments, because I would not want to be judged by my worst moments. And I know none of us would. If we think back in a very bad moment that we had in our lives that we almost don't even want to think about, no one wants to be judged in the middle of that. So not judging my family, but I know that people need to hear this to help them in their own journey. So I want to start off by reading a letter that Paul wrote to the Romans from the Bible, that I'm going to connect this to my story, but this is a very vulnerable letter from Paul, really talking about the battle that he always had internally, how he had such a passion to serve God, but he battled so much within himself. And you can, when I read this, you can tell it's mentally a battle of him going back and forth and really living in this balance of, I love God, but I live in so much sin. And how do I balance that? So this scripture is Romans 7:15-24. And it says, I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know that what I am doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me. That is in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyways. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is the sin living in me that does it. I have discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inadvertently do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. Oh, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? So when I think about that, thank you. When I think about that, I think a lot about my story. And I will start by saying that I am a child of two immigrant parents. Both of my parents came from severe poverty. They both came to America with the same goal of trying to build a different life and support their families back in their countries, because they grew up in severe poverty. So they came to work as much as they could and then send money back to their family and build a new life for themselves and create their own legacies. And that was their goal from the beginning, to come here and work hard to build a new life for their future children. So one of my family members, when they came here, they struggled a lot with learning the language, and they lived in a lot of fear because of that. And when I say fear, I mean it influenced our lives in a big way. So with the fear of not knowing the language, my sibling and I, we grew up very isolated because of it. because the parent that didn't know English, we didn't go to teacher-parent conferences at school. We didn't go to a lot of school activities. We were not allowed to be involved with like friends that this parent couldn't communicate with, because God forbid if something happened, they were fearful that they wouldn't be able to communicate and like find a way to find out what's going on. We were never the children that were like dropped off at the mall or dropped off at the movies, because again, the communication was a big barrier. If we happened to have a friend that spoke the same language as our family and our family felt comfortable with them, then that would be like the exception. But for the most part, we were very isolated. We also were not a close family that we would like go outside and go on vacations and like play ball together outside or play catch. My family also didn't grow up in a very intimate and loving environment, so they didn't know how to echo that for us. So a lot of our childhood was in isolation. And I have noticed that fear is such a big thing that comes down from generation to generation, because even before this parent, I had a grandparent that they could not be in the same room, in the same home with anyone that came in that they did not personally know. So when this grandparent was with our family and let's say they invited friends that they didn't personally know, this grandparent would lock themselves in a bedroom because they couldn't interact with them. And same thing for going out. If our whole family was going out, someone would have to plan to stay home with this grandparent because they couldn't go out and interact with strangers. And back then, there was no language for mental health. We are so blessed that now there's so much awareness and we're able to talk about mental illness and all these topics, and we know a lot of definition for things that there was no language to it before. So this grandparent, there were a lot of jokes made about, oh, they're just antisocial. And thinking back about it now, with me working in the medical field, it sounds like this grandparent had a phobia of being with people that they didn't know. Right. And with this phobia, I never was able to speak to this grandparent because now they're not alive, but I can assume that maybe there was some childhood trauma in their own life that could have connected to this, because it was such a strong fear to have to lock yourself in a bedroom because you couldn't interact with them. So I have noticed even in myself, I have battled a lot of fear with a lot of things in my life. With doing nursing school was very hard for me. Doing anything outside of my comfort zone, I battle such an internal battle with fear that I am so grateful that I have the awareness that I know I lean on God for this fear to step out of it, because I know it's something that generation by generation has been handed down. And I know that the enemy on purpose will leave a dark environment and something on purpose in a family lineage so it could continue to pass. Right. So for example, if you've ever heard families say that for 3 generations straight, the woman in the family got raped. This is just an example because I've heard this story before. That is not a coincidence. Mm-hmm. The enemy will put in a family a certain darkness so it can stay there, because the enemy is not omnipresent like God is. Right. So he will create an environment that will stay there, and when you don't break the cycle, it gets passed down to the next generation. Right. So this fear, because I have this awareness, I am the one to do my best, and no one is perfect. It's not like we conquer everything, because that is not meant for our life here on earth, to conquer everything, but to the best of my ability, conquering fear. So that is one side of my family. The other side of my family battled a lot of undiagnosed mental health illnesses, to the point where I believe that this family member was a lot like Paul in this letter. That's why I wanted to read this, because this is what I saw growing up. I saw this battle of somebody who, and me now being in the medical field, I know it was multiple undiagnosed mental illnesses, multiple things going on, where there was at one point rage to an extreme level, to 1 minute later or less,